Hello everyone, Ben here and welcome back to the channel, and today we've got a bit of a change. We are back on iRacing. I've taken the plunge, I've bought one of the new TCR cars and we're going to see how many of the races this season we can run on the new Touring Car Challenge. We're in the Honda Civic in the Mugen Honda livery. Before we get into our feature race, I wanted to also show you some highlights from another race that we have also ran this week. We had a decent qualifying, we were in 5th place. You can see us there heading into T1. We're running the reverse layout of Knockhill this week. We've made one position up through the starting process there and we're up into 4th. That was going to turn very quickly into 3rd as there was a big incident up ahead of us. You'll see then the two cars coming towards the end of the lap here, going side by side, slight contact there, pitches one into the tyre barriers, so we've made up another spot. That also gave us the run on the DHL liveried Audi up ahead of us as we headed into lap 2. We couldn't get him down into the hairpin. We do have the interest of a Hyundai behind us as well, as we're coming bombing down the back straight here into a very tricky left-hander that you've got to try and get the car through cleanly. Unfortunately for the Audi driver up ahead, he runs slightly wide. That's going to give us a bit of an opportunity into the left-hander coming up here. We then hit side by side with the Audi. We come together, we're both out onto the grass, and unfortunately for us we picked up some damage. And I regretted immediately making that move, but on the replay you'll see we did in fact get a little bit of a helping hand from the car behind us to pitch us into the Audi. We get a tap there, that unsettles us sufficiently to put us into the car next to us. Don't get me wrong, a risky move. I really probably should have lived to fight another day. But unfortunately, I'm not going to get into naming and shaming because I think these are probably just clumsy mistakes. It wasn't the end of the Hyundai driver's day when it came to forcing his way past cars. On the very next lap here, he's making a move to try and get up into a further position, and once more he tags the car up ahead and for good measure punts him off into the grass as well as he keeps his foot in on that incident. We actually ended up coming home 4th in this race despite that incident. We couldn't really make up ground on the cars ahead of us because I think we were carrying a little bit of damage, but nevertheless a solid race finish for us as we get used to this new car class. But we're going to move into now our feature race with full highlights from another session that we ran this week. We actually qualified less well for this race. We're down in the mid-pack as we get ready for the green lights. And we are away then. We get a decent start, but it looks like everybody around us did as well. We're going to be on the outside heading into T1 this time around, and that is going to be a little bit trickier. We're going to have to be very mindful of what's going on our inside here. We've got cars weaving all over the place. That basically brings us to a standstill on the outside of the corner. That will definitely have cost us a little bit, but unfortunately for drivers alongside us, they've had an incident as well, so that maybe has recovered that position for us. An apology that we don't have our usual overlays for this race. I couldn't get them working for some reason, so we're just on the stock iRacing overlays as we nearly come together with a car just up ahead of us as well as he got heavy on the brakes. We're going to take it nice and cautious on this opening lap to try and avoid any incidents. I think I'm probably down in 11th or 12th place. There's a car up ahead that's off, but we've lost it. We've managed to lose the back end on cold tyres and cold brakes. Thankfully we've managed to stay pointing in the right direction. We don't get a slowdown penalty, but that has definitely cost us more positions. We got very fortunate though that we were able to rejoin as safely and as quickly as we were. But wow, what an unfortunate first lap. We've got one car pointing in the wrong direction off to the left hand side. We're down in 12th position. That is not bad considering we were pointing in the wrong direction, and we may even be up a further spot given there was a car off to the left hand side there. So we've just got to try and calm down now. We've had a very big slice of luck that we weren't punished more severely for that mistake. We've got another car off to the right hand side and another up ahead getting it wrong into the left hander, just overestimating the grip in these opening laps. So we may now be back up into the top 10 as another car has put it into the tyres there on the right hand side. It's carnage in these opening laps here at Knockhill, as drivers are vying for position with one another and really just pushing it a little bit too far. This circuit really does invite you to keep your foot in, but it punishes you so much if you just take it a little bit too far. And if you get up on some of those elevated curbs on the apex of corners, it can pitch your car right the way off the circuit. We are then up into 9th place as the two drivers up ahead, White and Kramer, are vying for position here. So we've got to keep our eyes peeled for any mistakes up ahead, make sure we don't get collected in any further incidents. We've got a little bit of a gap back to Sarakut. There has been a further incident as White barges his way past Kramer there. Kramer made the mistake. White gave him no room on the outside, put him into the gravel, and that is going to be us up into 8th position. What an opening to this race. It is supremely intense driving in these cars on this short, tight, twisty but high speed circuit. Brilliant fun, and these cars feel fantastic. I'm really impressed with them here in iRacing. We've got a moment to breathe, so let's take a look back at the race start. Then you can see we virtually had to come to a standstill as the concertina effect of cars getting it wrong up ahead of us brought us into traffic, but we managed to keep the car moving. We didn't get into any contact ourselves, but then we made a massive mistake later on in the lap. We locked the brakes and the car just went around. I couldn't quite rescue it, but we were able to keep it pointing just in the right direction. We avoided a full spin and we were able to rejoin safely and into clear air. Very fortunate. It could have been much worse. And then here's the incident between Kramer and White as Kramer gets barged off onto the grass, and that gave us one position back. We rejoin then just a couple of laps later. We're still following Mason White up in 7th position. Samailich up ahead of him has had some sort of incident because he's now running in 6th position. He was up in 3rd. So there might still be more positions for us to gain here as we get into this race. We're still very early on in the race, in the first third of this race. So lots of opportunities to come. We just have to keep in touch with the cars ahead. Very difficult track to overtake on. In fact, there are virtually no overtaking spots on this lap, I would say, unless drivers make mistakes, as the car ahead has. He's gone around. We were just able to avoid White there as he lost the rear end. We took a decision to steer towards the crash as he was spinning across the circuit, and that paid off as we have now been promoted up into 7th position, and we've got Figuera here up ahead of us, a back marker. Is he going to let us pass safely as we come onto the start finish straight once again? Once we're clear of him, we'll take a look back at that incident and just see how close to being collected by White we really were. We should have a run on him here down into the hairpin. We're going to get just about later on the brakes. He's going to give us plenty of space on the inside. Fair play to him. We're going to sneak past and we are clear of him safely. But wow, just as I was saying, you're going to need drivers to make mistakes in order to give you overtaking opportunities. White made a big one on the outside of the circuit. He kept his foot in and that was enough to rotate the car. And wow, we were lucky. He then tries to keep his foot in still on the grass, but that only brings him into contact with the barrier and ruins his race. We're getting then towards the final third of the race, and you can see up ahead we're still in close proximity to 6th, 5th and 4th position. We're in 7th, we've got a little bit of a gap to Kramer behind in 8th. So are we going to be able to squeeze up onto the back of Samailich, Hess and Hollis up ahead? That's the big question as we enter the final set of laps in this race. Are they going to come together and come to grief? And actually there's another car just up ahead of them in close proximity, so the podium isn't actually that far away for us in this race. We've just got to keep it neat and tidy while keeping our pace up and try and be there to pick up the pieces should these guys come together up ahead, or maybe, just maybe, force a bit of a mistake ourselves as we come through the left-hander. Then you can see they're going side by side up ahead. That can't end well, can it? We know that from the other race we've already seen earlier. They do come together and one of the cars is pushed off to the left-hand side. It might give us a run on Hess as well. It's Samailich who has lost his position there and has dropped back down the field. We are going to be right on the rear wing here then of Hess as we come towards the end of the lap. Can we put a bit of pressure on into the first corner of the next lap as we try and make up another position? We're up into 6th place in this race. We could grab hold of 5th as well. We're into the braking zone, then we're going to squeeze right up onto the back of the car up ahead, but it's not going to be close enough. We're going to have to follow him through the corner rather than mount a further overtaking move in this race. Let's take a look back then at that clash between the two drivers up ahead. You can see that the car just up ahead of us gets a much better run than the Rockstar Energy Drink liveried car. They do come together on the apex, though there really isn't room for two cars to go through that corner, or at least you're making a very high risk move if you attempt it, as we found to our cost in the previous race. We rejoined just a couple of laps later then. We've been dropped slightly by Hess up ahead, so it may well be that we have to settle for 6th position in this race. We can see though the final podium position of Rodriguez Pin up ahead as we come onto the start finish straight once again, and we are closing in on Hess here. Maybe he's got a slowdown of some kind, or a problem, because he's really slowed down the start finish straight. We're going to get alongside him into the braking zone. We're going to hold the inside of the corner, hit the apex first. That is going to give us 5th position in this race. Wow, after that crazy opening couple of laps, I would not have predicted that we'd have made this much progress through the rest of the race. And indeed, when we look at the replay, you can see it must have been a slowdown penalty. Look at that! He's fully airborne. He cuts the chicane on the downhill section, and he must have had to give that time back. He was very lucky not to be pitched into a big accident. We were then able to keep pace with Hollis and Rodriguez Pin up ahead, but we couldn't squeeze right onto their rear wings. This is the final lap of the race, and as we come through the downhill section once more, snaking uphill and then get heavy on the brakes into the left-hander, we're closing right in, but they didn't make any further mistakes through the final laps of the race, so there really wasn't too much that we could do. We're going to have to settle for 5th place, but I'm pretty happy with that, particularly given we could have stacked it entirely on lap 1. Wow, I've got to tell you guys, these cars at this circuit on iRacing, absolutely brilliant. Really, really enjoyable. Here then are the classified results from that second race. Really, really good fun. We benefited from lots of mistakes from other drivers. I think if you try out this combination, you'll find that that is a theme, but then that is a bit of a theme on iRacing more generally. Safe and steady tends to deliver the best results here, but I've got to say, irrespective of that, great fun, really enjoyable to drive. They compare very, very well to Race Room's TCR cars, which I think are the best in sim racing. So I definitely encourage you to give these a go if you're looking for a new series to drive on iRacing. We're going to be doing plenty more races in this series through the rest of the season. If you've enjoyed it, please do leave a like, get subscribed for all of the sim racing content we've got coming up, and I will see you on the next one.